A new DLC has dropped for the game called The First Descendant, and as you can see, it's going to cause an absolute Twitter meltdown. Pure American horror. It has women in swimsuits in an appropriate environment. And the problem is that they're not morbidly obese, they don't look masculine, and as such, as you can predict, it's going to end up upsetting a lot of people. Now, before we go forward, it's important to point out that this game has passed the censorship of many international communities, including South Korea, which has a complete ban on pornography. It also passed the censorship of Apple, because you're not allowed to have any type of adult content on their platform. But that doesn't stop people on the internet to accurately assess that this game apparently is pornography. Like, as you can see, these individuals have absolutely changed the definition of what porn is and are using it in order to label anything that contains the heteronormative male gaze. And the reason that I insist that it's just the heteronormative male gaze is that the same individuals will defend another game that's also a gacha game, but this one is advertised predominantly for women. And so, again, this is a Chinese gacha game. It has passed the Chinese censors. It has passed the Apple censors. So it's not a game that's an adult game. It's just that it has fan service. And the fan service depicted here is specifically targeting women. And so, all of the people that were complaining about the previous game, literally the exact same people, they are absolutely fine with this game, but they will call the other game pornography. Even though, like, this game, in my opinion, has stronger fan service elements than the previous one. And the way that these individuals justify their decisions is by saying that realistic or not, beautiful and attractive features such as boobs and asses can harm or even kill women due to how it enforces the beautiful standards upon the audience. Like, again, these people are desperate to get their message across. They're desperate to understand how they're thinking. And the reason for it is that they are promoting queer ideology. Like, yes, that's true. A lot of these people that absolutely despise and hate games that cater to the male gaze, games that focus on promoting femininity and displaying the feminine aesthetic, again, games that are not adult-oriented, but they are either labeled T for teenager or mature. These games are under constant scrutiny. And the scrutiny was so effective that AAA game developers have started caving into it. And we get to notice that in the last 2 or 3 years in the AAA scene, that almost every single female character that the West is making looks like a man with a wig. And people have noticed this, and they have gone on Twitter and complained. And so the backlash for you complaining and saying that this character is ugly was, oh, so you just want to good. You're just a gooder. You just want to masturbate. The reason they're going with this angle is because it's a shaming tactic. Like, no one wants to be called a gooner. And so they're hoping that people stop noticing and complaining about the character design because they just don't want to see femininity in games. And any type of backlash, any type of criticism is unacceptable. And so if you spend time on Twitter for the last 3 years or so, you probably encountered this conversation more than 100 times. A person will say that these new Jaguar cars look so ugly. And the response is, I'm sorry if the car isn't attractive enough for you to want to have sex with it, go watch porn instead. And like, the conversation just doesn't make sense, right? Like, you're looking at a female character and you're pointing out that it's ugly because it is. And then people say, well, if you don't like it, go watch porn. Or go make your video game. And so at this point, I actually decided to take their advice in order to troll them. And I did both. And my God, were they not upset. My God, were they not livid. Because it seems that this wasn't a genuine request. Like, they didn't actually want you to go watch porn or to make a video game. No. They were basically wanting you to shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up, stop speaking, and allow them to be the only person in the room that gets to talk about morality. Because, of course, you know, like, they don't like pornography. They are decent people. They're upstanding citizens that promote queer theory, but, like, pornography for them is something that they would never do, and anyone that does it is lesser than them. And so, as I mentioned before, people who share the same ideology, which is queer theory, and also share some of the same arbitrary characteristics, have managed to get jobs into AAA companies and have completely changed the artistic direction of corporations. And this is self-evident. And when you play a AAA game, you can expect that female characters will have chest scars, pronouns, cellulitis, obesity, pretty much anything that moves away from the traditional female character design. And so now there is a hole in the market. Like, they haven't actually convinced people that feminine aesthetics is wrong, and I don't even know if you can do this because it's human nature. But the hole in the market also exists, and people wanting to spend their money is also there. And so China is coming and they're stepping in. And China is basically shamed here by game developers saying that Tencent wants to see no black people and no big boobs in its films and video games. And so China has absolutely dominated the gaming market last year. Video games like Path of Exile 2, Wukong, Marvel Heroes, like all these games are just dominating all the charts, all the Steam charts. So like all these queer theorists have managed to accomplish is to completely destroy the Western market. They have managed to successfully, completely crumple the Western soft power. Because, as I mentioned before, one of the main reasons that I like the United States so much is because I was bored with American TV shows, American video games, American movies, American music. And so, like, you have a weeb that absolutely loves Japan because of anime. I, too, and many others from my generation, absolutely love the United States because of their soft culture. But unfortunately, it seems that these people are dead set so that my children and the children of my generation are actually going to grow with Chinese films and Chinese video games because the moral busybodies have decided to reglement and regulate artistic freedom in the United States to the point where people are looking at competitors that will offer to them what they want. But, you know, like, the good thing is that there is a swing in the pendulum. Like, the culture is obviously shifting, and so maybe things will change. But apparently not. We're still not allowed. The people in the entertainment car will forever be oppressed by someone, because now that the oppression of the queer theory seems to be over, other people need to step up in order to continue the oppression and fill their wallets with cash from the retweets, from the likes, from the social media engagement. Because, again, controversy is good shit. It's good for business. If you're a content creator, you need to be antagonistic to other people. Like, the way to be moral in modern society is to have an authoritarian ideology. Like, that is number one. You need to have an ideology where you're concerned with what other people think. And it needs to be applied to literally everyone on Earth. Like, no one is free from that ideology. Whether you're like a guy living in Zimbabwe or you're a person in America, like, no, that ideology 100% applies to you, whether you like it or not. So once you have an ideology where you're hyper concerned with what other people think, you need to find a niche. You need to find whether it's racism, whether it's transphobia, whether it's Christianity. It doesn't really matter, but like, pick your niche. You know, in this case, we're going to pick lewdness in art, right? Like, any type of fan service is unacceptable, or at least has to pass through us so we can decide and scrutinize it if it's acceptable, right? Like, just like the trans people would say, well, this fan service that shows naked men is good, this fan service that has women with big tits is bad. Well, now we have different content creators that will say, well, Tomb Raider, the fan service in Tomb Raider is good, the fan service from literally the same game we talked about, the first Descendant, is bad, right? So now you position yourself into a place of gatekeeping. Now you have other people looking up to you for wisdom and answer. Like, there's no tradition based on this. There's no, like, deciding, like, well, up until now, this was what was considered okay. So, like, if it worked until now, we can still do it. No. You are the sole subjective arbiter where you get to decide what other people are allowed to watch or not if they want to be considered moral. And so, like, once you have these two, you have the ideology that's authoritarian, you have the position of power where you'd get to decide what's acceptable or not, then you form a group of people. You form a group of like-minded people that need to be very active and very vocal that surround you. And then what you do is you start demeaning other individuals. Like, you go online with the sole purpose of demeaning other people who don't think like you. Like, you want to shame them, you want to bring them down, you want to constantly use your group to harass them, like flood their mentions, flood their communication channels with like this group of people from your side to make them feel small and insignificant. And that's how you become a moral person in modern society. That's the best way to show that you're a decent individual, by tearing others down, by constantly being a Karen, by constantly doing all of these things. And so the reason I'm mentioning it is because, as you can see here on the website Know Your Meme, Gunnargate is already a meme here, and it's talking about the controversy where a person posted images from a protagonist in the first Descendant game that was fully clothed and was just doing a dance. But the camera was zoomed in on their tushy, you know, kind of the same way that a lot of us did when we were younger and we were playing World of Warcraft. And you have like a night elf, you get it to dance, and you move the camera over her rear. You know, like something beyond the pale. I don't even know how I managed not to get arrested. It was just, oh, goodness. It reminds me of the trauma when I was growing up as a teenager. Playing World of Warcraft and watching night elves. I know. But the interesting thing is that, as you can see here, it's like the Christian content creators. So they're talking about Melody Mac, but there's a couple of others. I think there's like 4, maybe 5 of them in total that are content creators, usually very small. Melody Mac is the biggest. But what I've noticed is that they're genuinely like watering down and changing definitions. Like, this is the symbol of an authoritarian ideology. It's like when they rebrand things, when they rename things, so that the general audience thinks of something, but they're talking about something else entirely. So what are the words that they have changed? Well, one of the words is pornography, right? Like, when most people hear about this, they will think about like hardcore, you know, penetration stuff. That's not what they're talking about. What they are talking about is the male gaze. So when they say this game has porn in it, like, the average person would actually think of an adult game. Like, they would actually think of sexual intercourse that's explicit and is shown. This is not what they're talking about, though. Like, what they're talking about is anything that a queer ideologue or a third-wave feminist would classify as the male gaze. Like, even a girl that has, like, big boobs and is in a swimsuit, that's enough to hit the definition. So, like, again, they're talking about something that their in-group understands, but people from the outside that don't look at the game, don't know what they're talking about, they will genuinely think that, wow, so like an adult game is now on the Apple Store? Like, what? This is madness. Like, my kids use the Apple Store, right? That's their in. That's how they manage to subvert the conversation. Other definitions that I see them change is the word problematic is now changed into the word degenerate, but it holds the same meaning. And the word misogynist, the same way that the third wave feminists used it, not the classical definition, has now been changed to mean Gunnar. And so when you see someone on their side saying that the first Descendant is a degenerate game because it allows porn in it, and the fact that Gunnar's defended justifies why we need to be against it, what they actually means is that the first Descendant is a problematic game because it has the male gaze in it, and the fact that misogynists defend it is exactly why we need to be against it. It is literally the same ideology with a new coat of paint. It's kind of like if you play one of those games, Crusader Kings, and you install a mod for it that has like a Lord of the Rings aesthetic, and instead of England, it's now Mordor, right? Like that type of thing. So it's like literally the same game. It's just that the names of the countries are changed, the names of the research items are changed. But at the end of the day, it's the same stuff. This is exactly what we're seeing, right? Like, this is not some theologians that are coming together in order to save souls, in order to lead by example, to show us what it's like to have a wholesome and fulfilling life, to show us how happy they are of being married with kids, and then other people would ask them, well, how did you manage to get to this spot? Well, you see, it was through the power and love of Jesus. That's how I managed to achieve happiness. Like, no, most of these individuals are absolutely miserable. But again, they have to tear others down on the internet over trivial shit like video games of all things in order to make themselves look moral and good by comparison. Meanwhile, it seems that the opposition, the backlash from the other side, actually is done by people who are married, have stable families, and they do seem to generally be happy with their lives. And so it's really bizarre because on the surface, you see these individuals that are very pious, holier than thou. They know how to fix Western civilization forever by fixing gaming. And they seem to lead miserable lives. And they're attacking those people that are happier than them. And it's like, no, you're not happy. You're not leading a good life. You're actually a degenerate. Look at the video games you're playing. Look at the entertainment you're consuming. You're a detriment to society. The whole reason the economy is collapsing is because of the gaming. You don't understand. Like, everything is interconnected. Everything is intersectional. And what you're doing, your choice to play The Last Descendant is crippling our civilization. And again, like, the person saying that is the one that's miserable and unhappy with the present, while the person that's just, like, playing the fucking video game is actually content with his life. He's got a workplace, he's going to work, he's seeing his family, he's just not having any of these issues. And again, like, these people seem to be seething. That's what I'm getting. The same way, like, the previous individuals that were spreading queer theory, they were also jealous over the cartoon characters that represented femininity, and they didn't look like it, and they were very upset. These people seem to, like, at the essence, they seem to be unhappy with their lives, and they're absolutely living that other people are happy. So, like, they're trying to find, like, any niche, any vector of attack in order to justify why that person, well, no, actually, you don't abide to the morality, and so even though you're happy, you're really not, and blah, blah, blah. And you need to come over to my side, right? Like, you need to listen to me, who, unlike you, I haven't found happiness, but I will tell you how to lead your life. And, of course, there's also the financial element, right? Because, like, a lot of these individuals, they generate a lot of clout and buzz on social media by being diversive, by doing the exact same stuff that worked in the past, like what the social justice activists in 2016 did worked. And so by copying and emulating their behavior, they hope that they are going to get a lot of traction. And in order to hide from the criticism, they will say, oh, you're not attacking me personally because I'm a bad person. No, you're attacking Christians, right? So the same way that when you would criticize a feminist, they would say, well, you're not attacking me because I'm a bad person or an ideologue, you're attacking women. And so my take is that there are different Christian denominations. Some are better than others. But the ones that they chose to associate the most seems to be the televangelist. Like, the televangelist was the same stuff, you know, like, he would go on a television and he would scream and rant and rage and bulge his eyes and behave like an absolute lunatic while preaching his interpretation of the gospel, right? Like, he would do sola scriptura, like, completely abolishing tradition, ritual. It's like, if it's in the Bible, then that's what it means, and I'm the one that interprets it. So usually they would interpret it in a way that made them feel good. Like, it just so happened that the Sola Scriptura was exactly talking about a God that was very forgiving to his sins, but was very condemning to the sins that the preacher didn't like. And while doing this, he would also sell miracle water. He would also make money from the ad revenue, from having an audience watching the TV, and all of that stuff. You know, and so that's what these people symbolize for me. It's like the mixture of hardcore capitalism with, like, all of the ideological excesses that we have seen in the last 5 years. Luckily, there aren't that many. Luckily, it's just like 5 or 6 content creators that push for this. Again, I personally don't think that Christian people are really that concerned with trivial shit like video games, when there are so many other things going on in the world. And you definitely don't spread Christianity by acting like a vegan and going to a person screaming that meat is murder, or being like an environmentalist that blocks the roads and prevent people from passing. I don't think like that actually brings people to your ideology. I think that just makes you look good amongst your group, right? Like, the vegan that screams meat is murder is going to get a standing ovation from the other vegans. The environmentalists that block the roads and eventually get abused by cops, they're going to get a standing ovation from other environmentalists, and probably it will increase their donations to their activist group. But it does nothing in order to actually change society. It does nothing to actually improve things. In order to do this, like, you would have to do what the feminists did back in the day and actually get jobs at influential corporations. And in which case, if you're actually successful and you change the culture to a more, you know, to the same censorship, but now you justify it differently, well, you're just helping China. And this is what really pisses me the fuck off, because I unironically like Western media. I genuinely like Western video games, and they're shaming all of that shit isn't going to do anything. Like, most people on Twitter have been called Nazis, have been called far right, have been called like any insult under the sun. Adding Gunnar to the list isn't going to do much to them. Like, they're going to still buy whatever the fuck they want to buy. They're still going to consume whatever entertainment they want to consume. However, they're going to just buy it from China, because China doesn't give a shit about your nagging, because that's what you're doing. You're canonizing. You're nagging people. And nagging doesn't work if the person isn't in a relationship with you. China is in no relationship with you. And so if you want more Wukongs, if you want more gacha games, if you want more stuff like that, you're on the right path. But if you want an alternative, you're content creators. Make your own fucking game. I'm doing it. It's not unreasonable. You already have a community. You already have supporters. Why aren't you making your own video games? You got like so many free game engines now. You got the Unities, you got the Godot, you got all this shit. There are so many artists that are starving out there. Like, you can do the Christian thing and hire them. That's what I did with my staff. I got a coder from Britain that got laid off from his university because of the diversity hirings. And so he was trying to get a job because he has a family to feed. So, like, I hired him. I hired another animator from Spain that couldn't get a job, and he is a hardworking individual, but is struggling to pay rent and still lives with his family because he has nowhere else to go. He's talented, but no one would hire him. I hired an artist from France. You know, all extremely degenerate people. Like, don't get me wrong, like, peak degeneracy. But, like, at least I'm struggling to help others, right? Like, I could just go and hire people from Fiverr or hire people from other places, but I also wanted to actually contribute. I'm not a Christian. Why the fuck aren't you guys doing this and hire moral people, right? Like, unlike me, you guys aren't degenerate. You wouldn't hire these people, right? But, like, find someone that actually would enjoy having some money and use them to create an actual video game that would sell, that the market wants, make a profit, and then open your fucking company. And then, like, you know, if you actually do have Jesus on your side and you have Christian morality and all of that, surely your company is going to be successful. Like, surely people are going to see, yeah, no, you know, this game is actually better than the gacha slop. Because at the end of the day, that's the reason why people play the gacha slop, is because there's nothing in the West to play. Everything is shit. We have reached the bottom of the barrel of video gaming culture, where 5 years ago we would have laughed, mocked, and ridiculed gacha games, but now they're actually better than AAA game. And I'm saying this objectively because I'm looking at the numbers of people that are installing, playing, and enjoying these games. So yeah, like, why instead of tearing shit down, why aren't you building your own? I know, like, some of them are building comic books and stuff, which, by the way, also happen to be lewd, but I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about video games, right? Because this is what the conversation is about. We're not talking about comic books. Why are they making their video games? Interesting, isn't it? Anyway, let me know what you guys think, and as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.